Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today we are examining a topic that has once again generated significant discussion among Iraqi dinar followers. Recent commentary has suggested that there is still no confirmed evidence of updated exchange rates appearing on redemption center screens or within banking systems. At the same time, there are claims from unnamed sources that notifications could begin early in the coming week, with potential exchange activity no later than Thursday. As always, our goal is to separate confirmed information from speculation, explain how the foreign exchange market actually works, and examine what these reports could mean for those who closely follow developments surrounding Iraq's financial reforms and the Iraqi dinar. The first and most important point to understand is that the information being discussed is not an official announcement. The statement itself begins by acknowledging that there is no confirmation of new rates appearing either at redemption centers or at banks. That distinction is extremely important because financial markets, banking systems, and official exchange rate changes rely on verifiable information issued by recognized financial authorities or reflected in actual market activity. Until official confirmation exists, any discussion about timing should be viewed as unverified rather than established fact. This is an important reminder for anyone following Iraqi dinar developments. In recent years, many reports have circulated suggesting that major changes were only days away, yet many of those timelines passed without the expected events occurring. That history makes it essential to approach every new claim with patience and careful analysis, rather than assuming that every reported time frame will automatically become reality. One of the statements attracting attention is the suggestion that foreign exchange markets often become active when trading resumes in the United States, particularly on Sunday evening, when global currency markets reopen after the weekend. There is certainly some truth to the idea that the opening of the Forex market is an important period for traders around the world. Currency markets operate nearly 24 hours a day during the business week, beginning with trading in the Asia-Pacific region, before activity shifts through Europe and eventually North America. When markets reopen after the weekend, participants analyze new economic developments, geopolitical events, central bank announcements, and government decisions that may have occurred while markets were closed. This can occasionally lead to noticeable price movements in freely traded currencies. However, it is equally important to understand that the Iraqi dinar does not operate like a freely floating international currency. The Iraqi dinar follows a managed exchange rate framework, administered by the Central Bank of Iraq. That means changes to the official exchange rate are not simply determined by ordinary forex trading or by speculative buying and selling. Instead, official adjustments depend upon monetary policy decisions, government coordination, banking stability, foreign currency reserves, inflation management, and broader economic objectives established by Iraqi authorities. Because of that structure, the reopening of global forex markets by itself does not automatically imply that Iraq's official exchange rate will change. The forex market may reopen every Sunday, but unless Iraqi authorities announce policy changes or introduce new monetary measures, the managed exchange rate remains under the control of the Central Bank of Iraq. Another part of the discussion concerns the suggestion that solid rates, rather than flashing rates, would need to appear before exchanges begin. This idea reflects a practical concern that financial institutions require stable and verified pricing before conducting transactions. In normal banking operations, exchange rates used by commercial banks and financial institutions must be supported by operational systems, settlement procedures, compliance checks, and liquidity management. Banks generally do not process significant foreign exchange transactions based upon temporary or unverified pricing information. Instead, they rely upon confirmed market data, official rate feeds where applicable, and internal compliance systems to ensure accuracy and regulatory compliance. Therefore, while the phrase solid rates rather than flashing rates is often discussed within parts of the dinar community, the broader financial principle behind it is understandable. Financial institutions require reliable pricing information before executing substantial currency transactions. However, there remains no public evidence that banks have received such updated pricing regarding the Iraqi dinar. until financial institutions themselves confirm operational changes. These reports remain speculative. The mention of notifications arriving early in the week is another area that deserves careful examination. Large financial organizations frequently issue operational notices to employees regarding system updates, software maintenance, regulatory requirements, or procedural changes. That is a routine part of banking operations around the world. However, without official documentation or statements from recognized institutions, it is impossible to verify whether any specific notifications relating to Iraqi dinar exchange activity actually exist. Anonymous sourcing may sometimes prove accurate, but responsible financial analysis requires distinguishing between verified evidence and reports that cannot yet be independently confirmed. For Iraqi dinar followers, this distinction matters because investment decisions should never be based solely upon anonymous reports or unofficial timelines. Responsible financial planning relies upon confirmed information from credible institutions, rather than expectations built around speculation. Looking beyond these specific claims, it is helpful to examine the broader economic environment in Iraq, because that provides a more reliable framework for understanding where the country currently stands. Over the past several years, Iraq has continued implementing banking sector reforms designed to modernize financial institutions, strengthen regulatory oversight, increase electronic payments, improve anti-money laundering compliance, and encourage greater financial inclusion. The Central Bank of Iraq has repeatedly emphasized improving confidence in the domestic banking system while reducing dependence upon cash transactions. Digital payment systems have expanded significantly, electronic banking services continue to develop, and regulatory standards have become increasingly aligned with international financial practices. These reforms are important because a stronger banking sector supports broader economic development. Efficient financial institutions encourage investment, facilitate trade, improve tax collection, and strengthen monetary policy transmission throughout the economy. At the same time, Iraq continues pursuing economic diversification beyond the oil sector. Oil revenues remain the country's primary source of government income, but policymakers increasingly recognize the importance of expanding agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, tourism, logistics, telecommunications, and private sector investment. Improving the investment climate has also become a recurring policy objective. Legislative discussions, infrastructure projects, and efforts to attract foreign direct investment are all intended to create sustainable long-term economic growth that is less dependent upon fluctuations in global oil prices. For Iraqi dinar observers, these structural reforms may ultimately prove more significant than short-term speculation regarding specific exchange dates. Sustainable currency strength generally reflects economic fundamentals rather than isolated events. Another factor frequently discussed is Iraq's foreign currency reserves. Strong reserves provide central banks with greater flexibility when managing exchange rates and responding to external economic shocks. Iraq has maintained substantial reserves in recent years, supported largely by oil export revenues. Healthy reserves contribute to financial stability because they enable the central bank to meet foreign currency demand, support imports, and preserve confidence in monetary policy. However, reserves alone do not automatically result in exchange rate adjustments. Policymakers must balance inflation, competitiveness, fiscal policy, government spending, and broader macroeconomic conditions before making significant monetary decisions. Inflation management also remains a critical consideration. Exchange rate policy influences import prices, consumer purchasing power, business costs, and overall price stability. Central banks therefore approach exchange rate decisions carefully, because abrupt changes can create unintended economic consequences, if not properly managed. The discussion surrounding redemption centers is another subject that deserves perspective. Within parts of the dinar community, redemption centers are frequently mentioned in connection with hypothetical exchange scenarios. However, publicly available evidence regarding specialized redemption centers remains limited. Traditional currency exchange generally occurs through licensed commercial banks, authorized exchange companies, and recognized financial institutions operating under applicable regulatory frameworks. If any future changes were ever introduced involving new exchange procedures, official announcements from recognized authorities would likely provide detailed operational guidance. Until then, claims involving redemption centers should be approached cautiously, unless accompanied by verifiable institutional confirmation. This broader context highlights why patience remains essential. Financial reforms rarely occur overnight. Banking modernization, legislative changes, regulatory improvements, technological upgrades, and international financial integration typically require years of coordinated implementation. Iraq has already made meaningful progress in several of these areas, but continued reforms remain necessary before the country's financial system reaches its long-term objectives. Another reason for maintaining realistic expectations is that financial markets respond to a combination of economic indicators rather than a single development. Investors monitor GDP growth, fiscal policy, inflation, employment, political stability, energy production, trade balances, public debt, banking reforms, and international relations collectively. Positive progress across multiple indicators gradually strengthens investor confidence. That confidence can encourage greater foreign investment, increase business activity, and stronger long-term economic performance. For Iraqi Dinar followers, this means that evaluating Iraq's overall economic trajectory may provide more valuable insight than focusing exclusively upon individual rumors regarding specific dates. International partnerships also continue influencing Iraq's economic outlook. Cooperation with multilateral institutions, regional trading partners, and global financial organizations supports ongoing reforms aimed at improving transparency, governance, and investment conditions. These relationships can strengthen Iraq's integration into international financial systems, while encouraging higher standards of banking supervision and financial reporting. Such developments may not generate dramatic headlines every week, but they contribute steadily toward long-term economic stability. Political stability likewise remains an important factor. Government continuity, legislative effectiveness, budget implementation, and policy consistency all influence investor confidence. When governments successfully implement budgets, infrastructure projects, and economic reform programs, financial markets generally respond more positively than during periods of prolonged political uncertainty. Therefore, observers should continue monitoring official government announcements alongside central bank policies, rather than relying solely upon unofficial market commentary. Returning to the current reports, the suggested timeline extending into Thursday should simply be viewed as one possible expectation, rather than a confirmed schedule. If no official announcements emerge during that period, it would simply demonstrate once again why responsible financial analysis requires verification before drawing conclusions. Conversely, if meaningful developments were to occur, official institutions would eventually provide documentation supporting those changes. Either outcome reinforces the importance of evidence-based analysis. It is also worth recognizing the psychological aspect of repeated timelines. Anticipation naturally builds whenever potential dates are discussed. However, allowing expectations to become certainty before confirmation can lead to unnecessary disappointment if anticipated events do not materialize. Maintaining balanced expectations protects investors from making emotional decisions based upon rumors rather than objective analysis. Responsible investing requires diversification, risk management, careful research, and patience. Currencies, like all financial assets, are influenced by numerous variables beyond individual reports or market speculation. Looking ahead over the short term, market participants will likely continue watching official communications from the Central Bank of Iraq, government economic initiatives, banking sector developments, and broader regional economic conditions. These factors provide a stronger foundation for analysis than anonymous reports alone. Over the longer term, Iraq's continued efforts to modernize its financial infrastructure, diversify its economy, strengthen banking supervision, attract investment, and improve governance may gradually enhance economic resilience. Those reforms represent measurable developments that can be evaluated objectively as they unfold. For Iraqi Dinar followers, this balanced perspective is especially valuable. Hope and optimism about Iraq's economic future can certainly coexist with disciplined analysis, grounded in verified facts. The country possesses considerable natural resources, strategic geographic importance, and ongoing reform initiatives that could support future economic growth. At the same time, meaningful financial transformation requires consistent implementation, institutional strengthening, and sustained policy execution. Progress should therefore be measured through observable economic indicators, rather than assumptions. As we conclude today's discussion, the key takeaway is straightforward. At this moment there is no confirmed evidence that new exchange rates have appeared on bank systems or redemption center screens. Reports suggesting early week notifications and possible activity before Thursday remain unverified until supported by official announcements or documented operational changes. The reopening of global forex markets is an important routine event each week, but it does not by itself determine the official value of the Iraqi dinar within Iraq's managed exchange rate system. The developments that truly matter continue to be banking reform, monetary policy, economic diversification, fiscal stability, investment growth, and institutional progress. Those broader reforms deserve close attention because they provide the strongest indicators of Iraq's long-term financial direction. As always, we will continue monitoring official statements, credible economic data, and confirmed policy developments to provide balanced and responsible analysis as new information becomes available. Thank you very much for watching today's update. If you appreciate factual, balanced, and responsible coverage of Iraqi dinar developments and Iraq's economy, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you never miss future updates. We remain committed to separating confirmed information from speculation, while helping you better understand the economic factors influencing the Iraqi dinar. Finally, please remember that this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, investment, or legal advice, and you should always conduct your own research and consult qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions.